Yeah, so I was just calling because I've just heard, some of the things that you said about black people. And for a man to just come from where you come from in your background, how is it just easy for you to say the things that you say?
Like what, for an example?
Like how you say that, black people, how it's like our fault nowadays as to why it's so hard for us to live. And it's not like it's especially if and you're from the plantation, it's really not our fault for us to be in the hood and to suffer.
Who fault is it?
Well, it's really the colonizer fault. They're the ones that designed it and stuck us in those situations. You know
Who
what I'm saying? They put
whose
us all
fault
in the
is
poor
it?
neighborhood.
I'm sorry. You said who? Who?
I call racist people colonizers.
Oh, maybe people like Jesse Jackson and all those people.
No, I'm talking about the ones, what I'm saying, that still stick with I can tell that the ones that stick with, the racist mentality
I
towards
don't. I
people
have.
of color.
Who are the? I don't know who you're talking about.
Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I guess you just aren't able to answer my question.
Who are you? Who? I don't. You said the colonized people or something like. I don't know who that is, and how you.
Like, you just go really hard on black people. Like, you're a black man from the South, and you say just a lot of harsh things about black people. Like, it's our fault.
But
Wow.
explain to me who the colonized people, so I can respond to it, and we'll move to the next one.
The colonizers are just racist people who,
You mean
saying
like
that say
Martin Luther
derogatory
King,
terms to people of color.
Martin Luther King, and all those guys?
Martin Luther King is not racist, and you're a black man saying that he's racist. That makes no sense.
Well, Martin Luther King and Jesse Jackson and the so-called
I'm
civil.
sorry, I'm saying palm colored people, white
What?
people.
Who? White people?
Yes.
So
See,
white people
you
cause
I say
you to
black.
white people
Not,
cause you
I'm
to live in the
saying
hood.
they did back in the day. That's what I'm saying. And the fact that we can't find jobs, the fact that it's too damn poor.
Back in
In the
what?
hood.
Back in
So
what
it's going to cause
days?
people.
What days did the
I'm
white
talking
people?
about back in the olden days.
Like
like
when?
the 60s, 70s, the 50s, 80s, stuff like that, where it was hard for us.
Where's your
And then,
proof that it was
crack
hard?
cocaine got dropped into the hood and everybody else's neighborhood.
Give
Yes,
me an
sir.
example back in the days when it was hard for the blacks. And not all, but most. Give me an example of it being hard for the blacks back in the days.
How was it hard? Well, you got to think it's Jim Crow, and then even after segregation, trying to integrate people, it was still hard. You know what I'm saying? Slavery, or not slavery, racism is still going on. People, separation.
What did Jim Crow do to hold the blacks back?
We weren't able to get jobs, you know what I'm saying? We couldn't get the good jobs. We
Why
couldn't
not?
get good neighborhoods. They couldn't go to the good schools because we pretty much got the crappy end of the deal.
Who told you that?
School told me that. History told me that. Learning history myself as an adult woman has taught me that.
How old are you now?
I'm 26 years old.
Oh. Do you know I grew up during the Jim Crow law down in Alabama?
I know, and that's why it's hard for me to understand how you can say and express how you feel about our community, and you've been through it as a black man.
So let me tell you about it. And I understand now what you're saying. I grew up during the Jim Crow law, and the Jim Crow law was the Democratic Party that did not want blacks to be members of the Democratic Party. And that's why there were some blacks and whites who started the Republican Party, because the blacks were not allowed to be a part of the Democratic Party. That's what Jim Crow was about. And as a result of that, black people knew that. My parents and their parents knew that, and they were okay with it because they knew that if somebody didn't want you in their home, they had a right not to want you there, and nothing was wrong with that. So they started their own home.
But how?
They started.
When your family
let me just
is
finish
making
that.
somebody money though. They can't be independent because somebody's dependent on them to do what they need for them to live. That makes no sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's literally taking your own rights away. Like, you should have a right to be part of a party even if they don't want you there.
Will you be surprised to know that during that time with the Jim Crow law, that there were blacks, even in my family? I had one aunt who got married. She and her husband bought buku land, and they had like 15, 16, maybe 18 kids. They had a bunch of babies. and they every one of them finished high school, went on to college, and they're professionals now. There were other black people who owned land and did the same thing. You've been lied to about what happened back then. Blacks were more independent then than they are today because they knew it had nothing to do with color. It was a battle between good and evil. And they knew that there were bad black people, there were bad white people.
The battle with good and evil has been here since the beginning of time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the end of the day...
So what do you think about what I said about it's not true that black people were not able to buy land and educate themselves and do what they had to do? What do you think about that?
I don't think that's... Maybe for certain people, but not for everybody.
Everybody's not going to do it now. I mean, black people...
True, but I'm saying
black people
back then, especially during when it was really hard, yeah, not a lot of black people were doing that. And it's cool that your family was able to,
but there were other families too.
Other families.
Listen,
but where
every
now?
family.
You know I'm saying, like, obviously something has to happen to where it was taken from them, or they lost it somehow, some way.
Nothing's been taken from them.
So okay, so
you've been lied to.
Are you going to say that? Are you going to say then that nothing was taken from the natives then as well?
But who?
The Native Americans.
You mean the Indians?
Well, the respected term native, that's what I like to call.
But you are referring to, are you referring to the Indians?
Yes, of North America.
Well, let's just deal with the blacks for right now, right? Because the Indians have the same kind of problems. They smoke
exactly. That's what I'm trying to.
They smoke.
They had the same problems.
They smoke drugs like $90 going dollars.
But okay, but they do that though, and we do it too because of what was happened: pillage, rape, being taken from our homeland.
You've been lied.
We taught different stuff.
Amber, you've been lied to.
I have not been lied to. You gotta understand is that I'm a mixed woman. I was adopted into a white household, and to unlearn a lot of the things that I was taught.
Amber, did you know that the civil rights movement,
especially as a black woman,
did you know that the civil rights movement was worse than slavery for the blacks?
No. Are you what? No, sir.
Yeah.
There's no. From 1619, when people went to Africa doing what they're doing, taking us, again, rape, pillaging us, taking everything that we taught them.
You were raped in Africa?
Our people were. That's how you and I are here. Your
family member?
I am a fifth generation descendant of slaves.
When you say that your people, your family members were raped in Africa?
And raped here in America too, absolutely.
And so, were you raped in Africa too?
I was not, but here in America.
So,
yes.
What does that have to do with your life?
What was that?
What happened, if it happened, 1,000 years ago, have to do with your life?
Because it's still cruel. Like there was still,
How has that affected your life?
It's affected my life to learn what's happened to my people, and I'm still being told to get over it when there's no justice being sought for our people.
Who are your people?
African Americans,
or
Africans, or the African diaspora.
All black people are your people?
They are, yes, sir.
And why are they killing you then?
Because nowadays, black people, yes, there are answers as to why they're doing dumb things. That is very true.
Why are they doing? Why are they killing?
I'm about to answer.
Black people are killing more black people than whites ever done.
Some of us are a lot. No. Black people are just doing stupid things.
Why?
But they are not doing as much damage as white people have done to our people. There's absolutely no way.
Why are black people doing what they do to one another?
Because that's all that we have. That's all.
What do you mean?
People are so happy to live in a hood that they don't own because that's all that we've ever been given. If the school systems don't care, if the government don't care, and our parents don't care, that means that we are going to have to defend for ourselves. And you got to think, I'm the generation where my mama had me in the 90s. So then that means she was born during the crack epidemic. You know what I'm saying? So then, therefore, that's going to affect the whole line of generations because people aren't taking care of the kids that they're supposed to. And that's going to affect future generations down the line.
Did you forgive your mother for that?
My mother hasn't spoken to me in years, so I'm trying to. Yes, sir, absolutely.
You tried to go to her, forgive her for what she did?
Yeah, but she doesn't speak to me.
And
So
why not?
that's a whole new subject.
Is your mother white?
No, I have a black mother.
But you have a white father?
No, my father's mixed, but neither one of them was in my life.
So your father is black and white?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay. So you tried to contact your mother to forgive her for what she did to you?
We've spoken over the years about it, yes, sir.
And when you tried to say, hey, I'm sorry for resenting you, what did she say?
Well, we haven't gotten to that point because, again, we haven't spoken in 10 years over some things.
Would you like to speak to her, forgive her?
Oh, well, I mean, of course, but you can't, force a horse to drink water.
So she won't talk to you?
To it.
If you tried to talk to her, she would not talk to you?
Correct.
Oh, how about your father? Have you forgiven him?
He was murdered years ago.
Oh, he was. And so
I never got to get him.
Do you want to be free within?
I am free within. I know God, absolutely. I'm a very spiritual person. Yes, sir.
Do you want to be free within?
Of course. Everybody does.
Do you want
they don't want to have to pain
do you want to be free and overcome the pain and suffering so while you live you would never experience that again?
But I will, because what we were talking about before is prevalent to nowadays. It'll always be here, so it'll always be a part of who we are.
So you believe for the rest of your life you're going to be suffering within?
Not suffering. No, I'm not suffering at all. I'm talking about...
You are suffering.
With racism. How am I suffering?
You have fear. You have doubt. You're angry. You're not free within. Do you want to overcome that?
I'm free within. No,
you're
I'm
not.
cool.
A free person doesn't blame anyone for their issues.
I'm not blaming anybody.
You're blaming the white people.
That's what I'm saying. I said that for how it started. That's how I'm blaming it. Yes, sir. That's exactly how that started.
But a free person would never blame anyone because they're free.
But how can we be free in a society that's
who is we? Why don't you? Are there
people?
Is there someone else attached to you or something?
Colored people, anybody of color that is not of Caucasian.
Anybody that of color?
Yes.
The Mexicans don't like the blacks. Did you know that?
They do not like blacks, but notice the whole world doesn't like black people.
And the
Japanese, the whole world doesn't like black people because if you take a look at all the world standards, the lighter, the better, the darker, the uglier.
But even dark Mexicans don't like black people.
But that's the problem is that dark Mexicans also face racism in their own community, so therefore they have to feel that way. They don't have to because they are more than welcome to be part of the black community because that's what they are. You know what I'm saying? You're dark. That's okay. The black people accept everybody.
Do you love white people?
Huh?
Do you love white people?
Well, I have to. I am half white.
Do you love white people?
Yes.
And then if you love them, why do you blame them for your failure in life?
I blame certain ones that continue to let this go on and not face the injustice that the people have done.
Like who?
Like who? Just racist people in general. I face racism
like
every
who?
day here where I live. Just racist people who are not of color.
Amazing. Let me ask you this, and I appreciate your call, but let me ask, is it hard for you to believe that the whole civil rights movement was a setup in order to control the blacks so that they can get power and positions and wealth for themselves, that they made all that stuff up in order to control the blacks?
No, because we as black people still barely have any rights.
So it's not hard to believe that the whole civil rights movement was set up?
I don't believe it was set up solely for that purpose, no.
It's hard to believe that prior to the civil rights movement, black people thought and did for themselves. They didn't have physical leaders.
What was that?
Is it hard to believe that prior to the so-called civil rights movement, black people thought and did for themselves? They didn't have some other man or woman over them telling them what to do and how to think.
We have always tried to fight for our injustices.
No, that's not the question. Is it hard to believe that prior to the so-called civil rights movement, that black people thought and did for themselves? they didn't have some other so-called leaders over them.
Okay, so I'm looking. Hold up, real quick. I'm looking at my comment section, and they are clearly going right on in about how I'm on welfare, and you clearly have some racist people in your comments.
But listen, I ask you, because of time, is it hard for you to believe that prior to the civil rights movement, black people thought and did for themselves, they didn't have so-called leaders?
Well, of course, yeah, they tried. We didn't really have any leaders.
And as a result of that, they did better for themselves than they do now.
It's a good question. I would have to say probably not. We still didn't get no where am I trying to go? We still didn't get no anywhere. We still didn't get into any positions.
That's not true. Have you heard of a guy? Have you heard of a guy called?
That's just one person, though. You know, if that's just one person that you can source. If you got other people, then I'll see. But there's no way.
No, there are a whole bunch of them.
A bunch of us.
Let me tell you, after this and then I got to run. You heard of a guy called Booker T. Washington?
Yes, I have.
Do you know he was born enslaved and his family was sold off and he
but
went...
that's just only a few people that we know in history. Of course, there are probably tons more, but either way, no, because we still didn't get anywhere without leaders or with leaders because they were all murdered off.
Why is it that Jesse Jackson and others, are they black? It's Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan and Martin Luther King. Are they all black? Amara?
You said yes. You said what?
Are they black?
Who?
Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and are they black people?
Yeah, they're black.
And
but what does that have to do with anything, though?
Why didn't the white people hold them back? Why they're doing well, their families doing well. But
also again, we're gonna go back to racism because they're light skinned. They're also fair skinned people. You know what I'm saying?
No, Jesse Jackson ain't light skinned.
Well, that's probably the only one. But Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, they were light skinned. And then besides Rosa Parks, she got to live a good life. But Martin Luther King, he was killed. We know by who.
Amber.
And then Malcolm X, he was killed by his own people.
Amara.
That's not what he's not talking about.
Amara.
Hello? Yes.
I want you to go to UncleTom.com and get that documentary. It's true. It's going to blow your mind. And it's by black people, so it's going to blow your mind.
I don't want to watch anything that has Uncle Tom because I'm sorry, but you sometimes have coon mentality because there's no way that I'm going to be from the Midwest and ever say the things that you have said about our people.
So you don't want to know the truth?
I know the truth is because I've found it, even from coming from white schools. I have found the truth as a grown woman of color.
You don't want to know the truth?
I do know the truth. But again, you're a man from the Deep South, and there are multiple stories that come from the Deep South that I am speaking on. And the fact that your family was one of the very few lucky ones, if I want to call it that.
It wasn't just all my friends. Their families doing well as well.
Okay, but that's only a select few. There are
a whole bunch of others that
damn well.
There's a whole bunch of others that grew up in Alabama, and they're doing very well.
But that's one state. That's Alabama, and that's
not just Alabama. I know black people in California are doing very well.
That's only Cali, but okay.
I know people in Wisconsin. I know people in Wisconsin who are doing well.
I barely know.
Thank you, Amber. So I was thinking about my last conversation there in the last hour, first hour there with Amara, and it's really sad that so many people have been brainwashed about the blacks back in the 50s, 60s, and whenever, right? And I've noticed that, and not all, but most, when you believe a lie, the lie becomes the truth to that individual who believed the lie. And you can't convince them that they're wrong because they have believed into a lie. Since we live by belief, Every human being live by belief, either in the lie or in the truth, but you can't help but live by belief. Pay attention to yourself. You live by what you believe. And so many black people have, and young white people too nowadays, have been so brainwashed about America and about history that it's hard to, you can't make them see. You can't, it's crazy. They can't see that they've been lied to. And I totally understand it. I totally understand it. But black folks, and now y'all, the young white millennials and the Zs, and not all, you've been lied to. Number one, there's no such thing as racism. That's another big lie that you've been told. And that's what the world does. It give you fake names to cover up spiritual issues. It gives you fake names to cover up spiritual issues. And all in the name of Jesus, too, because a lot of these people say, oh, I believe in God. Oh, I'm a good Christian. But they hate their fellow man.